Good deal. Well, let's move on to our next question. We have Justin Klein of Wisconsin. What in your opinion, are the best practices concerning decoy use? What do you use, and how does that vary situationally as far as like early season, late season, stuff like that?
Uh, I may be the wrong person to ask here, but I'll tell you why. I'm not a big decoy guy. I use decoys. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not the guy that totes around, a pickup truck full of decoys in their vest and has a flock of birds sitting in a food plot. That's just not the way I hunt. So um, typically, I'm pretty sparing with my decoys. If I've got a bird that is part of a sibling type group where there's several toms, and sometimes a strutter jake can just elicit some stupid response. So that's in my vest typically. Um, Sometimes I'll carry a hen and just use a hen decoy, and sometimes I'll pair that hen with a jake, and sometimes I don't use any decoy, even though I have them with me. I never take them. I never take them out of my vest. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I grew up when I was kind of coming on as a spring hunter. There was no such thing as a turkey decoy, and when they came on the market, I'll be honest, they looked terrible. Um, so they were the little blow up things, that you'd unfold and stick on a
The
stake,
old
and they
feather
just looked
flex.
horrible. Yeah, yeah. So I never used one, and I just grew up getting where the bird needed to go or wanted to go, or just and then chasing the bird to figure out, how I could get in front of him and kill him. And so I kind of came on late to the decoy thing, and admittedly I was a little resistant to it because I just I felt like I had enough stuff I was carrying around with me as it was, and I really didn't want to carry more stuff. But I have used decoys, particularly within the past 6 or 7 years, and had pretty amazing experiences with them. I'm not the person that every hunt is going to put one out in front of them. I just kind of let the situation dictate. If it's a bird I think is going to be aggressive, then that strutter jake can work wonders.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. I think that your take on that is a good reason why you are the guy we asked. It's that market really gets out of hand sometimes, and I like the fact that this, what you described is exactly how I grew up turkey hunting. My grandpa's the same way. We had a hen decoy and one of those foam fold up ones in his turkey vest, and when we went out, we'd take that, but we didn't always use it, and we usually just tried to find ourselves in the right spot. And I think that's the way a lot of people used to be, but it's not too common anymore. So it's nice to have an opportunity to hear from somebody that's doing that, you know, been doing that a long time, always found success. But on the
Really?
other end
Oh,
of the
go.
spectrum, we have guys like Mike Mancl, who are like Doctor Decoy. So why don't you explain what you're using with your decoy setup, Mansell?
I was just gonna first say, before we really started going into filming our hunts, I never used decoys at all. Especially, I used to hunt a lot more timber. I loved hunting timber. I still do, but from a filming aspect, it gets very difficult to film birds and decoy them. Before I even started filming our hunts, though, I would primarily hunt timber because of the fact that if you can strike a bird's interest up, and it's like without using decoys, it's like a guessing game for them because they're very good at pinpointing where that sound is. And a lot of times, if you're using decoys in the timber, they will just see the decoy and it's good enough for them, and then they'll wander off. But if you don't have anything, they know where that sound is still, and they'll still keep coming. And a lot of times, you can get really close to birds in the timber without having a spread out at all. Um, we used for years, spin and strut came out when we started filming our hunts with a motion decoy. And that was more effective on fields when birds would come out, and the second they'd be visible, you could give a little bit of a motion, and it's just a fishing reel you used, you pulled, and it would turn the decoy and throw it in and on the strut. And we killed, I don't know how many birds over the last few years with that decoy strategy. A lot of times we didn't use hens in that spread. A lot of times we just put the Jake decoy up, and the you get a tom to see it, and they wouldn't even think about the hen decoy. They go right to the Jake, want to beat the living piss out of it.
Oh yeah.
It seems like as decoys evolve, the turkey's knowledge for what's out on the market seems to evolve. I would say in the last 3 years, that decoy hasn't been as effective for us as it has in the past. So we've taken on different methods. I actually took a couple of my old decoys, and I actually have it here. We call it a dome. It was something I designed on my own, but it's a construction helmet, and just basically gutted a old decoy apart, and then took a Jake fan, zip tied in the back of it with the Jake fan on, and you can belly crawl. There's a lot of similar mojo that makes a scoot and shoot, I think it's called, and other types of decoys for sneaking close into range or reaping or whatever the hell anyone calls it. But I've found that this is a lot more effective than any of the other ones on the market, just because you can get so low to the ground. There's a lot of times, especially where we're hunting up here in Wisconsin, the first 3-4 weeks of the season, a lot of times there's not a lot of vegetation on the trees. So it's very difficult to belly crawl anywhere. So if you're using something like this, we're able to stay low to the ground. A lot of times you can go right across an open field on these birds and get into range and suck one in. But the beauty of using this later in the season is you can use timber to your advantage, get within 100 yards, and the second they see it, a lot of times all they got to do is close another 15, 20 yards on you, and it's game over. But I mean, a lot of our decoy strategies do change from the situation, but I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about some of the different things that we've done that work for us.